I'm Anastasia Salter. I'm a professor of English at the University of Central Florida.
And I'm John Murray. I'm an associate professor of games and interactive media, also at the University of Central Florida.
And we're going to be teaching distant coding in the context of programming pedagogy for the digital humanities at DHSI next year. This is a course that we first offered last year.
The technology has been changing. Last year, we showed how to use Copilot, which was a tool introduced directly in a code editor. And this year, we're going to be looking more at agentic coding tools, such as Claude Code for the web.
When we talk about agentic tools, we're talking about something that's distinct from generative AI. And a good kind of simple way to think about agents is as something that can use tools and run tasks in a loop to iterate and solve more complex problems. So you may have seen articles about computer science majors suddenly finding it harder to get jobs after graduation and the transformation of programming. Those conversations are really about what agentic tools represent.
So we'll be looking at how to use agentic tools in places beyond coding, where you may want to use it in your classroom, show how to complete tasks, and also change how you teach your courses.
We're also thinking through just some fundamental questions about labor and skills and credentialing within the digital humanities. What does it mean to fundamentally rethink how we kind of teach and value programming? How does this fit into historical questions in the community around code and what it's useful for? And what are the digital humanities going to look like as ed tech, particularly, is pushing campus in a certain direction that we might not be well served by? So here's a few examples of what we're talking about when we think about the way that agent-driven coding tools and distant coding are going to change what we do in the digital humanities. And these are two simple examples I built for my classes that kind of demonstrate the speed with which you can prototype and build content for public scholarship, visualizations, and interactivity using these tools. The tool I'm doing in this context is just Claude Code for the web. This was fairly recently launched in October 2025, and I've been teaching it with my students now. And it's a next kind of generation of the type of distant coding tool that is really accessible to people who haven't done much with programming before. It hooks up right to your GitHub account and does a lot of the tasks for you. So for instance, the first one I'm going to show you is this one, a game demo, and you can kind of see on this interface that it's hooked up to a GitHub repository on my account, Claude Game Demo. I've initialized this code base from nothing with Claude, and the result is this little game here. It was intended as an example of building instructional material, in this case, to get someone used to working with the Windows command prompt. It has a lot of commands built into it, a very cheesy mystery story that you can explore by moving through this file system using those commands. And as you go through, you can interact fully with that system. And it's a very simple way to get somebody used to these ideas. Under the hood, this project has its own process documentation, and these are all of the commands I use to build it. So you can kind of see how this type of iterative process involves first a planning process, which is really just like creating a designer specs document for any digital project, but iterating back and forth until that kind of process and goal set is understood by the system enough that it sounds like what you actually want. Then that first prototype was built from my specs document, which incorporated a lot of those elements already. And then there were several problems with it. And kind of that debugging process and what debugging looks like in the context of distant coding is one of the major areas where literacy comes in play, and where we can think about how code literacy and procedural literacy as well as understanding kind of UX and interfaces and the flow of an interactive experience really comes into play in actually taking something like this from a prototype towards something more usable. And so this version is just one iteration built through 12 back and forths, most of which involved debugging.
So I hope you can join us this coming summer at DHSI, where we'll be covering this and other topics about the future of computing in the humanities.
We promise that this will be both friendly to those who have not programmed before, and that we will be addressing some of the existential and anxiety-raising questions around AI without getting caught up in the same conversation on plagiarism you've heard a million times.
Hope to see you then.